Hello, and welcome to Politics and a Movie with your hosts, Doug and Mike. I'm Doug.
And I'm Mike.
And this week's episode, the midterm elections and the Karate Kid.
Yes.
As always, we want to thank our always behind-the-scenes tech guy, Frenchie.
Thanks, Frenchie.
Frenchie, he's like our own personal AI, Mike, but he smokes way more.
Yeah.
All right, and before we jump into our topics, let's start with one of our favorite segments, listener comments.
Sure.
All right, Mike, listener comments brought to everybody by our main sponsor, LentMail. Tired of too much email spam? Sign up for lentmail.com. Do it today.
Great product, Doug. I really think our listeners ought to try it. Check it out.
And and we cannot forget our promo code PAAM to sign up for free.
Oh.
All right, Frenchie, hit us with the comments.
All right. Well, here's one from Don Tay. Are you wearing pants when you record these episodes? That's an intriguing question. I can see why. No, I don't understand why you'd want to know that, actually. But I've got pants on. I've got sweatpants on.
Yeah, I'm wearing pants. I can't really verify that Mike's wearing pants from I only see him from above.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, whether or not someone's wearing pants online is sort of like the Schrodinger's cat dilemma. Basically, it says you just don't know things if you can't see them. So they could be in multiple states. So Mike could literally have no pants and be wearing pants, or even be wearing lederhosen.
Yeah. More comments?
All right. Well, here's one from Nevacatopia at Blue Sky, Mike.
Okay.
He's recommended a few movies to us, Mississippi Burning and There Will Be Blood.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been wanting to see There Will Be Blood. I've seen Mississippi Burning, good movie, and I've heard great things about There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, okay. Well, these are great suggestions. I like the idea of Mississippi Burning because it gives us a chance to talk about Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I love Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. That dude is over the top in that film. Hilarious. I mean, it's a serious film, but he is so over the top, it's almost funny.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Anyway, thanks for those suggestions. And Mike, this fella Nevacatopia, he says he speaks for millions when he gives us these suggestions.
Wow, we'll bring them on over to our podcast.
Yes, that's right. Let's get those millions.
For $1 million.
Yes.
All right, Frenchie, any more?
Here's from Elizabeth. How do you pick your topics? Great question, because we've gotten this in various forms before. I'll speak for the political side. You might notice that we really choose our topic from a historical perspective. The ideas come to us probably because of things that are happening in current events, but there are already plenty of podcasts about current events.
That's true, Mike. So we try to pick topics that aren't terribly current, but have enough history where we can talk about them with some hindsight.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the movie topic, I mean, Lord knows how that comes to us. I think we wander around in the desert and and after a severe heat stroke, something pops in our head. All right. Well, that's it for listener comments this week.
And send in your comments, please. I talked to some folks. They asked for the link. We would love to hear what you've got to say, any suggestions. And Doug, they can just do that through some of the platforms that we have, correct?
Yeah, sure. Just go to politicsandamovie.com.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, let's move on to our political topic, Mike, midterm elections.
Yeah, midterm elections, Doug. So why are midterm elections so important? And which midterm elections have been significant? So midterm elections are held every 4 years at the midpoint between presidential elections. And they're crucial for shaping the U.S. political landscape. They determine the composition of Congress by electing all 435 members of the House of Representatives for a 2-year term. So all 435 members of the House have to run every 2 years, Doug.
Yeah, that's frequent.
It is. It is. I mean, they're like basically running for election from the day of the last election. They're running for the new election. Yeah.
They probably get a week of respite where they can sort of say, we won. And then they're like, oh, damn.
Right.
Do it again.
But they, of course, they don't. The senators, represent the entire state. The House of Representatives just represents, 500,000 people or so that, are in a specific district.
Right.
Sometimes they represent just a city if it's a big city, or sometimes it's just if it's a really big city, they're just, the Bronx, just like one part of the city.
Yeah.
And sometimes 500,000 people or whatever the current number is for the House. Sometimes they don't even fill a whole state, so that like these giant states that have few people have only one member in the House of Representatives. But yeah, they have to run every 2 years. So then the Senate, however, they run for a 6-year term, and 1/3 of the Senate, they call it a class, run every 6 years. So in 2024, when we had a presidential election, one of those Senate classes, 1/3 of the Senate ran. And so now in the midterm, the next 1/3 of the Senate will run again.
So that's like, so every 2 years, 1/3 runs.
That's right. That's right. But then they don't have to run for 6 years.
Right.
In 2026, that's the next midterm. It'll be a new third of the Senate. So not the same senators who ran in 2024, a different group of senators, and not the senators who will run in 2028, because it's 1/3.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Additionally, many state and local offices are also contested during these elections. This electoral process provides voters with an opportunity to influence legislative priorities and check the power of the incumbent president. So historically, midterm elections have been significant in altering the balance of power within the Congress. For example, in the 2018 midterms, which was following Donald Trump's first election in 2016, the result was the Democrats regained control of the House of Representatives. It was a response to Trump being elected. Right. And so in 2018, the Democrats won back the House. The Republicans expanded their majority in the Senate, however. So the Democrats won the House, the Republicans got control of the Senate, and of course, we had a Republican in the White House.
Right. Yeah. So it seems like, these midterms really cause the country to kind of like swing around all the time, like jerk this way, then jerk that way.
Stop jerking around before I close you down for wasting my time.
Well, I mean, that's what the Constitution had in mind, I think, that, the three branches all are a check on each other. The judicial branch can make decisions about things that the executive branch, the president, does. And the legislative branch is also a check on the executive branch, or maybe the judicial branch. When the Supreme Court makes a decision, maybe the House of Representatives or the Senate, the Congress together makes a decision that changes in response to the Supreme Court's decision.
Right.
So, three branches, and they all are a check on each other. We don't have a monarchy where one executive is in charge of everything that happens. We have three branches.
Three, there's a magic number.
So in that 2018 midterm, the Democrats re-won the House, and that allowed them to conduct investigations of the president.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So because the Democrats won the House, they were able to investigate things like January 6th. And they also investigated things that the president was doing. And there was an impeachment. So that happened because of the 2018 midterm.
Interesting. And what are some other midterm examples along those lines from further back?
Great question. Great question. So in 2022, that was the most recent midterm that we had. That was following the Biden election win in 2020. That was noteworthy because despite historical trends where the president's party loses seats, the Democrats managed to keep control of the Senate, and they made gains in state legislatures. This was the first time since 1934, during FDR's term,
Hmm.
when the president's party did not lose any state legislative chambers or incumbent senators. Analysts have attributed this to factors such as high voter turnout, especially among younger voters. This was the 2022 midterm. That was the last midterm that we had. This underlines the importance. And you know, the next midterm is 2026. That is less than 600 days away, Doug.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, you know, if you want to cast your vote with the president, or if you want to register your displeasure, this is when you do it, during the midterm. And the midterms are usually not good for the incumbent president, especially after their first term.
Right.
Because, you know, it's a new president. Like another midterm, you asked about this. In 1992, Bill Clinton was elected president. This was, you know, the first Democrat in the White House for 12 years. It was after Reagan and George H.W. Bush.
Right.
So I think there was a backlash to that, where in the 94 elections, Newt Gingrich was credited with the Republicans regaining the House, or I don't even want to say regaining, because the Democrats had control of the Congress for 40 years until 1994.
Oh.
So 1994, it was a midterm. It was following Clinton in 92. The Republicans gained control of both houses in 1994. So another midterm, which was an important midterm election, was 1866. What was happening in that time, Doug, do you think?
1866. That must have been the famous railroad something.
Bust my buffers, Thomas! Steady on!
Well, we were talking about the Gilded Age and, you know, following
Right.
the Civil War. So 1866 was after the Civil War. It was a response to the Civil War.
Ah.
Andrew Johnson had become president because of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and he was not a popular president. Radical Republicans wanted stronger protections for newly freed African Americans. So the Republican Party was kind of splitting. There were radical Republicans and there were Republicans. And that was the party of anti-slavery. There was this response to the Lincoln election in 1866. And the radical Republicans overwhelmingly gained power. And they were able to override President Johnson's vetoes and pass the Reconstruction Acts, which helped to reshape the South and led to the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment, you hear a lot. We talked about this when we talked about the Supreme Court and how the due process clause is something that the 14th Amendment covered, saying that, you know, people have the right to due process. For example, you can't just arrest someone and put them in jail. They're entitled to a hearing in front of the judge.
Sure, yeah.
So the 14th Amendment, that was just one of the things the 14th Amendment covered. Then another big midterm was the 1934. And this will be the last one that I bring up.
Okay.
And this was called an endorsement of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So he came in, he was elected in 1932 and put in all of these New Deal programs in response to the Great Depression.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of the New Deal.
Remember, deal. No question.
Yes. So he was popular because it helped to bring the economy back. People were happy with his reforms and his government programs. So this was a midterm where the electorate, the voters, were with the president. Roosevelt got elected, and in the midterm, the voters said, "We like you. We're going to keep you." And you know, this is what could happen in the next midterm. Maybe the voters say, "Well, no, we like this. We made this decision in 2024 because this is what we wanted, and in 2026 we're gonna stick with it." Or they could decide, you know, maybe we don't like what has happened and you know, vote in a new Congress or new, you know, the other party.
Right. Mike, refresh my memory, but the New Deal, is that where the slogan, "a chicken in every pot," came from?
Now let that be a lesson to the lot of you. No chicken escapes from Tweedy's farm.
I think that's a slogan that's been around for a few things, but the New Deal was when Franklin Roosevelt, put in place some new federal agencies. You know, they built infrastructure, they built parks, they built roads, they built buildings. You see a lot of these Art Deco-ish kind of buildings that were built, a lot of like stadiums and public infrastructure. There's a bridge in Cleveland. It's now called the Bob Hope Bridge.
Okay.
But it has that Art Deco style that you see from the 1930s. And, you know, a lot of these public projects you see have that 1930s architecture. This was priming the pump, they call it, you know, where the government was trying to bring the economy back by investing in infrastructure, providing jobs. You know, these new public projects provided jobs for people. So
Right.
people had money to spend. And, you know, the money that they spent helped the restaurants and local businesses and things like that, that would also continue to pour money into the economy.
Oh.
So, yeah, in 1934, after Roosevelt was elected in 1932, the voters said, you know, we like this. He's bringing the economy back. And they voted him back in the midterm of 1934. Yeah, so just to restate, 2026 is not that far away. The election on November 3rd in 2026 is less than 600 days away.
Right.
So if you're feeling the election's over and there's nothing left to do, you should get out to vote. So this is an early call. You know, you can't complain if you don't vote, right, Doug?
That's true. As Frenchie likes to say, rock the vote.
You have the right to vote. Use it or lose it.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks for that summary. I learned something there.
Sure.
All right. Well, now let's go into our movie topic, The Karate Kid.
Yes.
So, Mike, The Karate Kid, it's an American martial arts drama franchise, and it was created by a fella, Robert Mark Kamen.
Okay.
It was made in 1984, and it kicked off a pretty extensive franchise that includes 5 movies, plus one that's actually in progress, so six so far.
Wow.
The creator, Kamen, he based his script on his experience of getting beaten up by bullies and then having to learn karate. So it's kind of a personal story for that guy. And he now owns and runs a winery in Northern California. So you can actually purchase Kamen Cabernet.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. The last 2 films, one of which, as I said, is still in production, they have Jackie Chan as the elder sensei. Yes. By the way, we could do a whole episode on Jackie Chan. I mean, that guy's awesome.
Right.
Interesting fact, the Karate Kid remake that they did in like 2010 that had Jackie Chan.
Yes.
It also had Will Smith's son.
Jaden.
Yeah, Jaden. Now, that remake was based in China. So in that movie, they're actually doing kung fu instead of karate.
So they could have called it the Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah, they could have, but that would kind of break the franchise. It would break the franchise, Mike.
Kung Fu, #1 super guy.
So aside from the movies, there was a Broadway musical also.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah, I'm serious. Everything has a Broadway musical these days. But then also, as you noted, the Netflix series Cobra Kai. And that does a great job, really, paying a lot of respect to the initial films.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk cast.
Yeah.
Ralph Macchio plays Daniel LaRusso. And he looks so young in this film, you know?
Yeah.
Of course, he's playing, I guess, like, I don't know, 17, 18-year-old, high school kid, but he was 23 years old when filming, so not much older, but he didn't look 23. I mean, he looked like he was like 17.
He did.
And Mike, they looked at a lot of other actors before they picked him, and it was like a who's who of 80s actors back then, Mike. So it was like Sean Penn.
Hey bud, let's party.
Robert Downey Jr.
I am Iron Man.
Wow.
Charlie Sheen.
I think you're an incredible genius.
Nicolas Cage.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Wow.
And Tom Cruise.
I mean to beat you to death and drink your blood from a boot.
Wow.
So all those guys were considered, but they ended up on Ralph Macchio.
Yeah.
And then Elizabeth Shue was in it, and she was 21 when she filmed this.
Oh.
And this was her first feature film.
Wow.
Yeah, they discovered her from a Burger King commercial.
Oh.
Yeah, so she did great. And the character Johnny, the bad guy.
Yes.
Played by William Zabka. He was the youngest one. He was 19 years old in that movie.
Oh.
Yeah. Interesting note, the casting people, they originally were interested in Crispin Glover. as we all know, was George McFly.
Yes.
Yes, I'm George. George McFly. I'm your density.
I think they did a good choice picking this Zabka guy who was kind of unknown.
Right. Well, he's a good bad guy.
He did do good bad guy.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Mike, the classic role of the sensei, Mr. Miyagi.
Yes.
That was played by Pat Morita. Now, he was almost rejected because they thought he was not serious enough, because he was known for this character, Arnold, in the sitcom Happy Days.
Sunday, Monday, happy days.
Wow.
Remember Happy Days, Mike?
I remember.
Yeah.
They were happy.
Yeah, before we had all this political turmoil.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the film, Mike, it didn't win any Academy Awards, but Pat Morita, he was nominated as Best Supporting Actor.
For Happy Days?
No, for the film.
Oh, okay.
So he was nominated. He didn't win. Interesting note, he lost to Hang Yor, who played a role in the film The Killing Fields.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that guy, he won Best Supporting Actor, and he had no prior acting experience at all.
Yeah.
Before that role in The Killing Fields. How's that for the American dream, Mike?
Well, that's the Oscars, though. Don't they go for the serious stuff?
And I can't deny the fact that you like me right now. You like me.
Yes, they do.
Not the popcorn movies.
Well, anyway, that guy was living the American dream, but sadly, though, he was murdered in LA 12 years later. So, dream cut short.
Oh.
So, Mike, the movie was really a low-budget film. It had bad music and lame locations, but it was only made for $8 million. But it made $131 million.
Wow.
Which, as you know, Mike, is more.
Wait a minute. Let me get my calculator.
Yeah. So the film did great and spawned a great franchise.
Yes.
That's still going on. So
yeah.
So it's interesting. The film opens saying Newark, New Jersey, September. Like it doesn't give a year or anything.
Yeah.
LaRusso and his mom, they're packing up in their old, ugly-ass green station wagon.
This is the automobile you should be using, the Wagon Queen family truckster.
Classic station wagon. Did you ever, your family ever have one of those?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Numerous.
Yeah, me too. And that like old beat-up station wagon.
Yeah. With the fake wood panels siding.
Yes, the family truckster.
You think you hate it now, but wait till you drive it.
Anyway, they pack up their station wagon. They're headed to L.A., not Lower Alabama, Mike, but Los Angeles. That's in California,
Oh.
So on their here's something interesting. On their cross-country drive, they stop and stay at the Canyon Portal Motel in Arizona.
Okay.
Turns out that's a real motel, and it's in Sedona, Arizona, which is a really cool little place in Arizona. My grandfather actually lived in Sedona.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he was an engineer, electrical engineer, and he built like a dozen solar homes there.
Wow.
Another fun fact of Sedona, Mike, is that it's just one of a few locations where the McDonald's arches are not yellow.
What are they? What color are they?
Well, in Sedona, they're turquoise because, that's sort of a thing there.
Yeah.
And in Paris, France, they're white.
Oh.
So those are two places where the McDonald's arches are not yellow. Oh, and Frenchie is chiming in, claiming McDonald's fries in Paris are better than in the States. Okay. So he gets to LA, and what's the first thing he does, Mike? He goes and goes to a beach party, because as we all know, that's all over the place in California. Yeah, it happens really quickly.
Go to California, beach party. Happens like that.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, and he meets Elizabeth Shue.
Right.
And then right away, Mean Johnny comes in, and him and his gang, they beat up poor Daniel.
They break her radio.
Yeah, they break her radio, and they beat up Daniel. And so that's what gets him to sort of like think about taking karate.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mike, so he goes, so he wants to, learn some more karate. So he goes to the local karate dojo called Cobra Kai.
Yes.
And, of course, it's disappointing because the sensei there is this one mean bastard, John Kreese.
Yep.
And he walks in, and there's all these photos of John Kreese in Vietnam, posing with rifles and guns. And
Defeat
does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei!
Anyway, he can't join there because the bullies are already training there. So he's having a bad time in this move, Mike. He's not having a good time moving to LA.
Right.
But his mom is loving her new job. I was laughing because one of the quotes from the mom, she says, she's all excited about her new job. And she says, the benefits I get here, I could never get them working in computers. That's just sort of funny. I guess back then, working in computers was a dead end job, Mike.
I guess. I don't know. What year did you say? 84?
84.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. So in the movie, the bullies are in control of everything, right?
Yeah.
They're controlling the school, the karate dojo, and the beach. So there's sort of the tie-in to our political topic.
Okay.
When one party controls all three things, midterms are a chance to even it out a bit. Plus, kids in schools, they have midterms, I believe.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a Halloween school dance, Mike. You remember that scene?
Yes.
Yeah, the kids are all like cutting loose, having fun. One guy dresses up as a chicken, right? And he's throwing eggs at people.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
That was really weird. You couldn't do that today because that would put the production over budget.
One thing I thought was funny was he's just like a shower. He's like walking around. And I just thought it was a funny scene when, Elizabeth Shue, she goes, "Oh, Daniel." You can't tell it's him. It looks like a shower,
That's right.
Shower curtain. Oh, it's Daniel.
Yeah, that must be Daniel. Well, the bullies beat him up, but honestly, Mike, he sort of provoked him.
Oh, right, with the water thing.
Yeah, in this scene, he kind of like provoked him a little bit, but still they beat him up some more, and it's unfair. It's like 5-on-1, right?
Yeah.
All right, so now Mr. Miyagi, let's talk about him for a second. He is such a great character, and at first he seems to be just the handyman, for the apartment complex. But then in this scene, he comes out of nowhere and he saves LaRusso's ass, and then takes him under his wing, as it were.
Yeah.
And now, Mike, Daniel LaRusso becomes Daniel-san.
Daniel-san.
And Mr. Miyagi starts calling him Daniel-san, like a lot through the movie. Daniel-san. Yeah. Now, Mike, do you know what san means?
I don't.
It basically means honorable. Like it's a nice way, like calling someone Mr. or Sir.
Yeah.
And sensei, it's used. Typically, we know it as meaning someone who's like a martial arts teacher, right?
Yes.
Sensei. But it also, in Japan, it can also mean someone who's an expert in the field, like a doctor or a lawyer.
I hate lawyers. Every lawyer I ever had just shafted me and my mom.
Oh.
And then Mr. Miyagi, he's got like a really detailed background in this film. He's like a developed character.
Yes.
He likes to grow and trim bonsai trees.
Right.
He owns a bunch of classic cars. Lord knows where he got all those, but he has.
He answers that question. Where do all these cars come from?
Right.
And his answer is Detroit.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, Detroit. And then also he keeps trying to catch flies with chopsticks, Mike.
Right. That seems like a bad way to do that to me. I don't know.
It is a bad way. Now, Mike, in my home, I have this like electrified little tennis racket that zaps the flies.
Okay.
You ever see one of those?
I've seen zappers. I know not that look like a tennis racket.
Yeah, it's like a little mini tennis racket, and you swing it around, and when it touches a fly, I'm not kidding, Mike. The fly like literally explodes. It's like zap, and then it just vaporizes these flies. So it's sort of unfair. I sort of feel bad. I think I should switch to chopsticks. All right, so now Daniel-san wants to get trained. Now, Mike, this sort of reminds me of a funny story. I used to work at a startup, and I was friends with one of the marketing guys there, John. And so a few months into the job, we had a new hire who was a bit nerdy. He comes into the room where I'm chatting with John, and he sees John. His eyes pop open, and he totally fanboys out on him. Like, "Oh, Sensei John, it's an honor." Blah, blah, blah. Turns out John was this triple black belt in this martial art pakwa.
Wow.
Like he competed. He had training videos that starred him, and he was skilled in like weapons combat, like swords and nunchucks.
Oh.
Yeah, he was like a big deal. I had no idea, but this guy was like, he told us all about these videos, and John was kind of like a little embarrassed. Well, like one day, funny story he said was he was training in a park with another fella.
Come on, then. What? How about you?
And they were training with swords, sword combat at night. And people called the police and said ninjas were fighting in the park. Anyway, I asked John to train me, Mike.
Yeah.
So he was like my sensei for a few months. He was giving me pakwa training during lunch hours at this startup. So, but Mr. Miyagi was a bit trickier in his training. Remember, like wax on, wax off, making Daniel-san wash and wax all his cars.
Yeah.
I never had to do that with John, but Daniel-san, it was hard for him to see that he was getting good training. He thought he was just providing slave labor, right?
Where? I can't. Here, diagonally. Pretty sneaky, sis.
But he gets trained, and then he meets Johnny and Cobra Kai at the big karate tournament, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty good scenes there, by the way, in that tournament. Daniel-san starts very cautiously and quickly gets the hang of it.
Yeah.
And then we see the Cobra Kai guys. They're really bad. They play dirty pool.
Right.
And one guy hurts Daniel-san's leg, and then Kreese tells Johnny, sweep the leg.
Yes.
That's a dirty pool, Mike.
Yes.
Sweep the leg. You have a problem with that?
That's a phrase that has carried on since the film. Sweep the leg. So the film has a real lasting impression over the years.
Yeah.
Wax on, wax off, right?
Yep. Classic.
Wax on, wax off. Don't forget to breathe. Very important.
It is classic. And then, Mike, the big finale, of course. Sorry if we're giving it away to people. But Daniel-san, he uses the crane kick to beat Johnny and win.
Right.
Here's the funny thing. That was common with older movies, Mike. Within 12 seconds of him winning that match, the movie ends.
Yeah.
It's like Daniel-san wins with the kick. They rush the mat. They give him a trophy. Johnny actually grabs him and says, "You're all right, LaRusso." And then boom, the credits roll. Like they don't waste any time. They're just like, okay, he wins, everyone out of the theater. And that was kind of a common thing, like a remarkably fast end to the film. And then short credits, like credits used to be super short back in the day. Now they're like 10 minutes long with like 2 little scenes snuck in the end. But back then it was like, boom, the movie was over, get the F out.
Yeah.
So in all, Karate Kid, it's a classic film. It has a lot of nice life lessons in it.
And I think the first one, it's often the case, is the best one.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Well, I think we've reached our limit on this episode.
Yeah. Good movie, good classic movie. And the midterms, vote, it's important. I think people need to do that.
Okay, good. All right. Well, for all of us here at Politics and a Movie, thank you for listening. And you can check out our website at politicsandamovie.com. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Frenchie.
Yes.
Daniel-san. Daniel-san. Daniel-san.
What?
Good night, Daniel-san. Daniel-san must talk. Daniel-san, you much humor. Very good, Daniel-san. Don't forget to breathe. Very good, Daniel-san. Oh, Daniel-san. 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 Make your role, Daniel-san. Oi, Daniel-san. Daniel-san. Yeah, very good, Daniel-san. Happy birthday, dear Daniel-san. Banzai, Daniel-san. Oh, Daniel-san, you always behind the ear.
Are you crazy?
Pants.